It's the Week 8 preview show. Carson Fox here, previewing the number 17 Kansas State Wildcats, who come into this contest on Saturday 5-1, 2-1 in Big 12 play at our beloved West Virginia Mountaineers. 3-3 overall, 2-1 in conference play. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff on Fox from Milan Puskar Stadium in Morgantown, West Virginia. The ESPN betting odds for this game have it still just a field goal. Believe it or not, just 3 points in favor of Kansas State, a road favorite. Over/under set at 54.5, and the ESPN matchup predictor has this just about the same as it did last week against Iowa State for West Virginia. 43.4%. I really think the home field factor, home field advantage per se, playing into that matchup predictor percentage. But it's been tough, West Virginia and Kansas State, throughout the history. Here's your matchup history. West Virginia just 6-7 versus the Wildcats. 5-6 between the two teams when West Virginia joined the Big 12 in 2012. West Virginia split a home-and-home series with K-State back in, 1930 and 1931. So very competitive between the two schools. They did not play in 2023. West Virginia didn't play the Kansas schools, didn't play Iowa State, didn't play Texas. In 2022, oh boy, it was a 48-31 loss for West Virginia in Morgantown. It was Garrett Green's first start as a redshirt sophomore after he led the comeback in relief of quarterback JT Daniels the week prior versus Oklahoma, and it was a wacky one. West Virginia's defense couldn't stop a nosebleed, allowing 34 points in the first half. And between two Garrett Green interceptions, inopportune sacks, a missed Casey Legg field goal, and 2 extra points, as well as a 2-point conversion, West Virginia just left too many points on the table for a well-coached Chris Klieman-led team to not capitalize on and route to their Big 12 championship game-winning finish to the season. And since then, we know Kansas State last year was another 9-win team, just like West Virginia, won the Pop-Tarts Bowl over a good NC State team, and they've been on the rise. The Chris Klieman being hired the same year as West Virginia, and it's like West Virginia's gone about this way or down and up and down, and Kansas State's just been on a steady incline to being a power player in this Big 12 conference. So what's on the line for both teams in this contest? Well, now that we're in the dog days, similarly to Major League Baseball, of the college football schedule, where conference championship contenders emerge and others really fall by the wayside, of where they're looking at the prospects of, with today's now 12-team college football playoff, more meaningless bowl games than ever before, there are tiers forming. And right now in the first tier is 3 undefeated teams in conference play: BYU 3-0, Iowa State 3-0, Texas Tech 3-0. In that next tier, West Virginia and Kansas State included, as well as Arizona State, Cincinnati, and Colorado. So whoever loses this game is very much on the outside looking in. With so many teams in this conference and so many different tiebreaker scenarios, I can't see a way in which either of these teams really, unless complete chaos happens like it's 2007 all over again, that either of these teams are really going to be contending by the end for a spot in Dallas, wherever the Big 12 championship game is played. Looking at Kansas State's schedule the rest of the way out, against Kansas, I know an in-state rival, but Kansas really reeling. That game also at home. On the road at Houston, bottom dweller in this conference. They have a bye. Then 3 games, Arizona State at home, Cincinnati at home, and then on the road at Iowa State. So a much more, very favorable schedule for Kansas State to go in, because I do think right along Iowa State, right alongside BYU, that they are the 3 best teams right now in conference play. I know that Arizona State's on the rise, Texas Tech being 3-0. Can't argue against them being 3-0, but that's why they're ranked. That is why they're ranked. They have the pedigree. They have the roster. So the other really being, in this case for West Virginia, is Neal Brown's press conference remarks from Monday. So a loss goes a long way in, I feel like, the rage of the fan base. I will be in attendance on Saturday, so I'm just very interested to take it all in from that perspective, both in the tailgating parking lots, in the stadium, throughout the game. I mean, I want West Virginia to win with all of my power. All of my power, I want to see West Virginia win. But if it's a loss, it's going to get ugly. It's going to feel bad. Oh, I just don't want to think about it. I really don't want to think about it. Weather alert, going to be another nice one. Low 70s, sunny during the high during the day, low of 42, so going to get cold definitely whenever that sun finally drops, whenever this game kicks off at 7:30 at night. So, but nothing I feel like that's going to have an impact on the play on the field. Not like Texas Tech last year at home. Injuries, something else you got to consider at this point in time, because they are starting to, the bumps and bruises may turn into something larger, and then those things add up. For West Virginia, two key injuries that were mentioned at the press conference on Monday, being free safety Aubrey Burks, also defensive end TJ Jackson. West Virginia desperately needs both of those players. I did see during the game on Saturday between Colorado and Kansas State that quarterback Avery Johnson, who I'll talk about, did take a shot and I think was absent for about 5 plays or almost the end of a full series. Taquan Roberson came in for him, took a shot into the ribs. So again, it might just be some of those bumps and bruises in which a guy like Johnson is playing hurt but not necessarily injured. But then again, to varying degrees, I feel like everybody is at this point in the season. But I think we need to monitor that situation about Aubrey Burks and TJ Jackson and see if they suit up come Saturday or if there's any other mystery injuries. Guess no Jaden Bray for this week, but really, has Jaden Bray made a positive factor in any of these games so far this year? Not really. So not really worried about that. Let's move on to what to watch for when Kansas State has the ball. So, high-powered offense, 8th nationally, starting off talking about them, in rushing yards per game at 241. And it all goes through junior running back DJ Giddens, the Big 12's leader in rushing yards, 4th nationally behind Boise State's Ashton Jeanty, Iowa's Caleb Johnson, and North Carolina's Omarion Hampton. 108 carries, 786 yards, 2 touchdowns, 10 catches, 129 yards and a touchdown. He's had 86 rushing yards or more in all 6 of Kansas State's games so far this season, plus 4 100-yard games. So, including Kansas State's 2 back-to-back. And I think arguably he had his best game last week against Colorado. I know he's had some other incredible performances, but 25 carries, 182 yards, 2 catches for 38 yards on the road against the best defense I feel like I've seen Colorado play under new head coach Deion Sanders. Also in that backfield, Dylan Edwards, transfer from Colorado, former 4-star Rivals top 100 player in the nation and the best player in the state of Kansas in the 2023 class. He had 36 carries, 222 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the season, and did have a touchdown last week against Colorado. And then also, got to talk about the quarterback, Avery Johnson. What a stud in the rushing department. 51 carries, 306 yards, and 3 touchdowns. His passing, 92 for 149, so that's a 62% completion percentage for 1,100 yards, 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So it comes out to just about 184 yards per game through the air. But when he's also adding, 60 on the ground, so he's versatile and he's incredibly fast. Incredibly fast. Try and play against him on EA Sports College Football 25. It's nearly impossible how fast he is. And what I want to say last week by Johnson, down 4 with 3:05 left to play in regulation with the ball at Kansas State's 16. He hit DJ Giddens for a 34-yard completion, and then wide receiver Jace Brown, who I'll talk about in a second, for the game-winning touchdown from 50 yards out on a go route, beating a Colorado defensive back for the ball, putting Kansas State up 31-28 in that contest. He was just 15 for 23, 224 yards and 2 touchdowns with a pick, and did have negative rushing yards because of sacks. Again, Colorado sent the dogs after him for 4 quarters. He's excellent, and he's a gamer, and now he's proved it twice, I feel like, with that Tulane game included on the road, plus being the MVP of the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Like, maybe my favorite quarterback outside of Garrett Green in the Big 12 Conference, because what he can do as a dual threat. Talking about his wide receivers, all goes really through a number 1 sophomore, Jace Brown, just 6 foot, 180 pounds. Kind of reminds me almost like a Chris Olave in physical stature and ability from what he brought to the table for Ohio State a few seasons ago. Doesn't pop off the charts in numbers, but when he gets his opportunities, he's a big play guy. 23 catches, 398 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's good for 11th in the Big 12 in receiving yards. And again, Kansas State isn't one who likes to go as up-tempo sometimes as, say, like an Oklahoma State. I do know that they have the capability to play fast, but also they're a run-first, heavy team. So he's a deep threat. That's almost, 20 yards per reception. And also, junior wide receiver Keegan Johnson, about the same size, maybe a little heavier at 205, transfer from Iowa, 14 catches, 161 yards on the season. And Kansas State always likes to involve its tight ends. Now, they have 2 of them they kind of work with, Braden Lofton and Garrett Oakley, right around the same size, about 6'5", 240. Combined, they have 14 catches for about 160 yards also, but 3 touchdowns. So Johnson does like to target his tight ends in the middle of the field, and then especially the red zone. And in the red zone, they're stout. Wow. These numbers kind of pop off the page. 20 for 21 with 15 touchdowns, incredibly efficient. So what to watch for from West Virginia's defense when attacking this Kansas State offense is, I really think that the front 7 has to be just as aggressive, almost to the point of uncomfortability, by leaving your defensive backs on an island and really hope that Johnson has an inaccurate day, because he does have a tendency, when I've watched him pass, throw the ball high. He hits players, above the helmet that they have to reach up, and he just overthrows them. We saw that early on, a few seasons ago from Garrett Green doing some of the same things. So I think that will get better for him at time. But at this point in his college career, and from a development perspective, he still has that to work through. So just like Colorado last week, one-on-one tackling, especially on pass plays, or whenever the Johnson or the running backs get outside the pocket, get beyond the line of scrimmage, it's going to be vitally important, but also willingness to tackle. The willingness to tackle, I feel like, was also there last week against Iowa State, as it was against Oklahoma State. I just think that Matt Campbell and the offensive play calling over there at Iowa State, they dialed up the right plays at the right times, and their offensive line created the holes for Carson Hansen to run through. But the problem is, for West Virginia this week, DJ Giddens is a heck of a lot better than Carson Hansen. And whenever he gets tired and he can take over 20 carries per game, they're going to spell him with Dylan Edwards, who's fast. So really, really good combination, especially when you consider the RPO or spread read option rush attack availability by Avery Johnson. So that's why you're going to have to pick your poison. What holes, A gap, B gap, C gap, do you want to try and to attack? And they do a lot of trapping on the offensive line. Or they bring, again, the tight ends or the wide receivers in motion pre-snap, or right at the point of the snap, and they're coming across and they're hitting who they think like a would-be tackler right there ready to make a play, and bam, someone's coming at him full speed and hits him, and bam, that's right where the running back goes through. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough for this defense. especially if they decide to do as I say. Maybe Aubrey Burks might be hurt. Don't know how much you're going to get out of TJ Jackson. Ugh. You really need your best soldiers for this battle. Because if you're going to leave Aiden Garnes and or Garnet Hollis Jr. on islands against Brown and Johnson, Keegan Johnson that is, man, you got to hope that they don't give up anything over the top like they did last week against Jaden Noel and Iowa State. And that's unfortunately the risk you're going to have to take, I feel like, in this contest. West Virginia's defense is not good enough to, I feel like, try and half dedicate to stopping the run, half dedicate to stopping the pass. It's got to be an all sellout against the run, I feel like. And then wherever Avery Johnson's able to beat you, you just got to hope that your defensive backs can make some plays or feed off the crowd, hoping that he makes a mistake here and there. So again, didn't get a turnover last week against Iowa State in a loss. They did against Kansas. They did against Oklahoma State. Turnovers going to be pivotal. And West Virginia, I love this article a week or so ago from Keenan Cummings of Rivals, chronicling how good West Virginia has been over the last 20 years whenever it wins the turnover battle. It's incredibly important. Incredibly. Let's flip it to what West Virginia, what to expect from Kansas State and what West Virginia needs to do when West Virginia has the ball. Now, the biggest calling card, I feel like, out of Kansas State, when you just look at it from a numbers perspective, is that they lead the Big 12 in sacks with 18. And I think that Colorado as a team has definitely improved this season. Their offensive line still kind of Swiss cheesy. They do have a 5-star, true freshman left tackle who's been, a godsend for that offensive line, but still Shedeur Sanders gets pressured a whole heck of a lot. And the thing is, watching that game, it was an exciting, exhilarating 4 quarters of offense. Don't you like when you see that instead of complementary football of slowing it down, wanting to take 8 minutes worth of possession and go 75 yards on 14 plays like it's 1970s Nebraska, 3 yards in a cloud of dust running the veer? The people who defend that argument just drive me nuts. Instead, exhilarating. Garrett Green, unfortunately, so Colorado passed all over Kansas State to the tune of 34 completions for 88 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, unfortunately, Garrett Green is not Shedeur Sanders. Doesn't have the physical stature, doesn't have the arm, especially throwing across his body or whatever across the field. I mean, some of the throws that I saw Sanders make in that contest just are pure NFL throws. He has all of the physical tools. Does he have the mental makeup and toughness? To be determined. I think similarly in the way with Caleb Williams, but has all the same kinds of physical tools. So, and the other problem is, I feel like, unfortunately, Neil Brown will never, ever let this offense become a Dana Holgorsen-like air raid, which is exactly what Colorado has been doing all season to varying successful degrees. But last week, especially against Kansas State, they gave the Wildcats all they wanted. And Kansas State traditionally has been a very, very good defensive team, and they got theirs on sacks. Don't get me wrong, Colorado also couldn't run the ball, but they pretty much negate the run game and just try and go air raid or like a arena football league and pass all over the field, get the numbers for Shedeur Sanders. But with that being said, they could do it all. They could throw deep, they could throw short. They were putting guys in space and letting their, speedster wide receivers just outrun Kansas's defense. So they put on a offensive clinic that I feel like West Virginia could try and recreate that kind of mold, but they're not going to. It's just unfortunate that is not what the head coach thinks can be winning football for this program, even though I think with a cast of Traylon Ray, Rodney Gallagher, Cole Taylor, Hudson Clement especially, And then, some other guys who I feel like are chomping the bit for opportunities, say a Justin Robinson or a Preston Fox if he's fully, healthy and can make big plays. Like, West Virginia has the talent, has the capabilities. I mean, right now, Wyatt Milam is a mid-season second-team All-American at left tackle. Yes, there were some issues with Brandon Yates and snaps, but last week, maybe that can get cleared up. And that wasn't as evident on pass plays as it was on run plays, unfortunately. It might just be, how quick he wanted to, snap the ball to get engaged into his run block rather than the pass block. But I could be wrong on that note. So we don't know whether it'll be, Yates or Livingston, or there will be a short leash this time. So what I need to say about what West Virginia needs to do is totally different, unfortunately, than I think what the head coach is going to try and do. I think that West Virginia is going to a challenge, try and run the ball with Jaheim White and C.J. Donaldson, and the same kind of vibe and same kind of attack that they tried last week against Iowa State. It's going to feel rinse, repeat, but can West Virginia capitalize on a few of those mistakes that they had? The Rodney Gallagher drop in the red zone in the second quarter, the missed field goal by Michael Hayes, the blown coverage to Jalen Noel, and then the couple interceptions by Garrett Green. Can he make better reads in the passing attack and try and win this game close? Burn clock, that kind of thing. Where they need to be better, I feel like, is not, and like I said this in the recap of the Iowa State video, is just abandoning the run too quickly. It's vitally important. I gave you the stat last week that West Virginia is 6-0 when Jaheim White gets to 100 yards or more rushing. So, and West Virginia now has a negative overall record when he doesn't. So getting him involved outside the tackles, he's the X factor, and then C.J. Donaldson between the tackles. And he only went to, in the second half last week, White 3 times, Donaldson twice. So if it's not working, then I hate to say it, but you just kind of go Don Nealon and try and break down that wall, break their will, because if you're not going to go that opposite route, and I wish they would. I wish that Garrett Green were allowed to take. It seemed like last year he took more liberties. He was able to throw the ball downfield, even sometimes into traffic. I think of was Devin Carter that big of a loss at wide receiver? I can't believe that. I mean, some of the numbers, looking at his passing numbers through 6 games, against Penn State, 15 of 28 for just 161 yards. Against Albany, arguably his most efficient game, maybe best game. But still, we're talking about an FCS opponent here, y'all. 17 of 23 for 236 yards and 3 touchdowns. Against Pitt, 16 of 30 for 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Kansas had the highest yards of the season, but only 15 of 30 for 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Oklahoma State just 9 of 15. All they wanted to do was run the ball, 159 yards. And now last week against Iowa State, just 18 of 32 for 206 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. And why I point this out, because I've been one who's argued that the completion percentage statistic can be a bit of a misnomer. It doesn't have as great of a representation, I feel like, as people make it out to seem. Yeah, it's a stat you can talk about, but there's more added context behind it. But where I look at it from this perspective is if Neil Brown and staff and players are trying to slow games down, efficiency means more than ever before. So 14 incompletions means 14. It's almost like a foul ball or a taken strike. If you're not in a 2-strike count, is like you didn't accomplish anything. Because it was an incompletion, you were not moving the ball forward. I would rather it be just, again, 1 yard in a cloud of dust rather than an incompletion that gets you nothing when it comes down to those small margins in which that can make or break a difference for you. So that's why I feel like for this year, a little bit more so as opposed to last year, that completion percentage number is meaning a little bit more because that's a lot of incompletions, and you're not moving the ball forward because of it. And I don't feel as if West Virginia is trying to move the ball in chunks like they were last year. Finally, I felt like in that Kansas game, and a little bit in both the Iowa State game and a little bit in Oklahoma State, that they were throwing crossing patterns to the middle of the field, hitting Hudson Clement in stride. Like, finally, we get some slants, some Will Grier to David Sills-esque slants, but we're not getting those kind of like shot plays like we used to. So, is this the time to see it? I feel like the present is as good a time as any. So is Devin Carter that big of a loss? Not getting Justin Robinson is involved. Haven't seen anything from Jaden Bray. Few plays here and there with Hudson Clement. I can think of the 40-yard bomb in the fourth quarter. I think it was third or fourth quarter that he completed against the Cowboys. Like, need some more chunk plays like that, I feel like. So that's what I have to say about the offense. Special teams, pretty even. Shout out in the punting category for a redshirt freshman, Simon McClanahan. So redshirt freshman punter, 21 punts on the year, 42 yards per average. On the opposite side, Ollie Straw had 2 punts last week, but both were inside the 20. So while still his yards per punt average is just by decimals increased now to 43 for the year, but he's just doing so well with pinpoint accuracy, nailing opponents inside the 20. So if 2024 is the year of like coffin corner punt Ollie Straw, fantastic. I'm cool with that. But he's still got a boot, still want to see him do it. Not much has changed in the returns other than Traylon Ray last week. Did have his longest of the season now and kickoff return of 33. Like to see that, even though I just feel like every single time he goes to receive a kickoff, he's just standing right in front of the end zone with his hands out to the side, and bam, West Virginia starting out at the 25. More teams are booting it through the end zone than West Virginia is. In the returns for Kansas State, Dylan Edwards, who does the punt return duty and has been doing some kickoff return duty, does have a 71-yard punt return for a touchdown this season. Beyond that, just about a 7 yards per punt return average, so not much to say there, but he's elusive, he's hard to bring down, so both either in the kickoff return game or punt return game, don't kick it to Dylan Edwards. Just do a good job there, play smart, be efficient. In the kicking game, for Kansas State, we'll talk about senior Chris Tennant, 9 for 11 on field goal attempt tries this year, along with 48. He's 0 for 1 from 50+, and 4 for 5 from 40 to 49, but perfect elsewhere, also perfect on point afters. For Michael Hayes, fewer field goals attempted, just 7 for 8 now, long of 44. Last week, missed that 36-yarder in the second quarter that was vitally important, it felt like at the time, but did make a 43-yarder. So that's your special teams comparisons. Pretty even. Might give the edge to Kansas State. They also play very well disciplined under head coach Chris Kleiman, at least during his 6 years that he's been in Manhattan. So my 3 keys to victory, very important. Number 1, I think just like I said when breaking down Kansas State's offense, take the Colorado mold of a week ago. Sell out to stop the run as best as humanly possible and make Johnson try and beat you with his arm. And it's going to be a hard-fought battle for 4 quarters. And West Virginia, unfortunately, is going to be unsuccessful at times. But if, just like Oklahoma State can endure wave after wave and do better on third down. That was something I felt like that just lacked last week against Iowa State on third and fourth down. I think they were Iowa State was 9 of 14 on third down, and then on fourth down they were 2 for 2. So it's like those are money downs. Those are money downs. I know if you bring it on first down, you bring it on second down. It's so much asking a lot sometimes to bring it also again on a third down. But that's when it just seems like the intensity has to be there. Jordan Leslie, get back in the booth to call plays and call better plays and recognition of what's going to happen run versus pass. Because it just seemed as if West Virginia last week was guessing wrong when times that Rocco Becht was either taking it himself or Carson Hansen was busting right through the A gap for a first down run or a touchdown run. Then West Virginia would sell out to stop the run, and they would hit you with a pass for a first down. So, got to be better on those third downs. And like against DJ Giddens, you cannot afford to have a lackluster tackling performance. Offensively, key to victory. Continue offensive line to give Garrett Green time. Those 18 sacks, Kansas State is going to try and get after Garrett Green. And he's got to have his best day passing, I feel like, of the entire season, which is saying a lot given through what I said of the numbers. So this is Garrett's moment. I said at the end of the Iowa State game, he only has, bowl game excluded, 6 more games, I feel like, as quarterback of this program. And again, still very, very variably dependent of if you just tuned into my video or coming from my video about the Neal Brown press conference. But like the impact of Neal Brown's head coach job status and what do the future prospects look like at the quarterback position if there is a head coaching change in Garrett Green. Like you can kind of read between the lines, I feel like, if you watch that video with what I said there. So my long-term play, long-term vision, I feel like, is if West Virginia can't win this game against Kansas State, depending upon the performance and, end of the day, outcome by Garrett Green, I would say even statistically, he might get the Arizona game, and that's just about it. Because then you have a bye week in between and 4 more winnable games, you feel like, in November with Cincinnati, Baylor, Central Florida, and then Texas Tech to end the year. But, again, Texas Tech having a good year. Cincinnati having a pretty decent year. So I don't know. But I just feel like now Nico Marchiol being a third-year starting quarterback, like how much of Garrett Green's career development was botched waiting for so long that like Nico hasn't done anything to not deserve the opportunity, just will the opportunity present itself. And that's what really I'm waiting on. Unfortunately, it's just been not a great year so far by Garrett Green. But that could all change come Saturday. That could all change with a good performance. He definitely has the tools. He definitely has the players around him who still buy into him as the team leader. So he's just got to go out there and prove it on the field. And Mountaineer Nation will be behind him. But my third key to victory is I really want to see that intensity. It's been, I feel like, a wild week with tons of distractions off the field. This is why I feel like you have to talk about that in the context of game previews sometimes, like what happens in the week. And right now, West Virginia's head coach created a giant distraction, it feels like, for these players who should be all focused in on a homecoming, mind you, game for West Virginia. Like, this is it, man. You only get, 6 of these, or now for 7 for this season, a year. These Saturdays, you work 12 months out of the year for these days specifically. Now this giant distraction is out there. Can West Virginia overcome not only that, but just a performance in which they felt like they gave it a lot last week against Iowa State and just didn't dot enough I's, cross enough T's to win the ball game? I've questioned this team's focus over this season. I've questioned this team's ability to put teams away and close and play with a lead. And that's what I just hope that it doesn't fall all apart come Saturday. Because, PTSD of like 2019 at home against Texas Tech, and I can't remember that quarterback's name off the top of my head from Texas Tech, but West Virginia gave it their all in a huge Thursday night nationally televised game the week prior against a nationally ranked Baylor, came up short, and then the defense mutinied the offense. And I'm not saying that this would happen, like that's the reason why, but it's just like I've questioned in my previous video where head coach Neal Brown's head is at. at this point in the season? Where is his passion for this team, for West Virginia, all of those things? I want to see that not be the case on Saturday. I want everybody to be full-fledged, locked in, like chomping at the bit to go out there and destroy Kansas State. But going beyond that, I've questioned this head coach's strategic ability and then wanting to see his team go out there and do it. I'd love to see Kansas State get beat 49-0. I was at the game in 2018 when West Virginia with Will Grier just absolutely passed all over Kansas State and destroyed them, and it wasn't even a game. And I miss that. I want to see that. I'm tired of this, let's win like it's Iowa State and try and use time of possession and be slow and all that. Go out there and kick their teeth in. Come on. Or is that just why? That's just the laissez-faire kind of attitude. Does West Virginia have that ability? Who's going to step up? I'm not going to question a guy like Josiah Trotter. Absolutely not. He'll rip your freaking head off. Reed Carrico's done that at times so far this season. Aubrey Burks is a warrior, putting his body out on the line. TJ Jackson's been, he was pushing Eli Holstein's helmet down into the grass. That's the kind of nastiness I want to see. And, not nastiness to the point of, I've seen, I forget, it might have been in an NFL game, spitting on a players or, doing anything dirty whatsoever. But, you watched Colorado and Kansas State, it was intense. It was passionate. It was heavy hitting. You watched Oregon and Ohio State last week, same difference. Ole Miss, LSU, that's what you got to bring. Go out there and just crush them. Crush them to the best of your ability, and at least you put it all out on the field. We'll see that. Fans will see effort. Fans will see effort in where guys are perhaps loafing and where, as I love that line by one of my coaches, years ago, and guys who are going out there and giving it their all, play in and play out. So we see that, and we appreciate that as fans. So do that. My prediction, preseason, I said it was going to be K-State. Now, I thought West Virginia would win the Iowa State game. I also thought West Virginia would win the Backyard Brawl. So I'm now 3-3 on my picks for the season. So I hope I'm wrong here again. Attending this game, I'm saying 31-30. It's going to come down to something late that just Kansas State knows how to close a little bit better than West Virginia. If I had to be a betting man and put something on the line for this, it's going to come down to one possession that Kansas State's just going to pull it out at the end. But I hope I'm wrong, and I really hope I'm wrong in the big scheme of things that West Virginia can come out here and win this game convincingly. But when your team has the record that it has against ranked opponents in the last 6 seasons, there's a problem. So I will believe it when I see it, and right now I just don't believe it, but I really hope to. If you're coming to this game at Milan Puskar Stadium, love to meet you. I'll be in the green lot, kind of have handicap parking, so up closer toward the garage. So if you are there tailgating this and having fun tailgating, please stop over in the green lot. Love to talk with you. Like this video on YouTube so more fans can see it. I'd love to have you as a subscriber to my channel. If you like this video, check out some of my other videos on the channel. Try and bring a pre-game show and a post-game show on Sunday, so I'll be back for that. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it. Can't wait to be back in Morgantown. Can't wait to see these Mountaineers in person. So I will agree with Neal Brown to his statement. Again, if you want to watch that video, you can watch that video here on my channel, my reaction to that. But to the point of I am looking forward to the having fun in the in the parking lots, tailgating, in the stadium. Like, that's what I love. I love being at Milan Puskar Stadium and spending my fall Saturdays there. It's a part of me. But at the end of the day, I want to see a positive outcome. I want to see West Virginia wins. All of those other check boxes that are checked that I do in support as being a fan do not matter for my overall mental health and like well-being as a fan, as a sports fan, if West Virginia doesn't win at the end of the day. So I hope they do. And I'm ready to rock and roll and cheer them on as a fan. So, hail West Virginia. Let's go.